Okay, so I'm in the Gospel of John, chapter 17. In the previous message, I was speaking about sanctification, and that most people have the opinion, they have the belief, they have the conviction that sanctification is about getting your flesh under control. It's about eliminating the sin in your life. It's about becoming a person who does not violate the law of God, that somehow that is the way that you obtain sanctification. There are a lot of people who believe this, they promote this, they try to live this way. But listen, folks, in the end, if you achieve that goal, if you succeed at getting all of the sin out of your life for whatever reason, or however you may be able to manage accomplishing that, if we get to a point where we do not sin, we live doing all those things that we're supposed to be doing, and we don't do those things that we're not supposed to be doing, what have you really achieved? I mean, really? People don't think about it very well. And I think one of the reasons why they don't think about it is because they know they're never going to get there anyway. So they're trying to live a life that they know they cannot live as if they can and as if there is a goal. And, when I talk with people about this, when I confront them, what do they usually say? They say things like, well, I know that, but we are to try. All right, so you try. And then what? What then? Well, what it usually turns out to be, what this becomes a way that they can compare themselves with other people who don't seem to try, or who don't do it as well as they do. And so it becomes the means by which they develop a sense of religious pride. Okay, so it really has nothing to do with achieving sanctification. It has nothing to do with obtaining some right standing with God. It has nothing to do with obeying God, repenting from. It really doesn't have to do with that. It has to do with, can I compare myself with you? That's what these people end up doing. This is how they end up living. And so if they can compare themselves with somebody else, then they feel good about themselves, and they just have this attitude, this religious pride that they're into. And if they find other people who've got a similar sense of religious pride, then, they can feel a sense of oneness with one another. But, you got to be careful, because eventually one of these people, they might decide that they now need to, become better than you are, kind of thing, so that they can compare themselves with you. And then you have the whole thing all over again. But in the end, let's just assume for a moment that you achieve obedience to God. You repent of all of your sins. You're no longer sinning, and you do all that which is right, and you don't do anything that which is wrong. What do you really have? And I will say that you really don't have anything. You really don't, because you still will not know your God. And will he know you? And will there be an interactive relationship with you and him because you got your flesh under control? There is a belief that this will be achieved. But I don't see it. I just don't see it. I see a God who develops a relationship with us, who works with us in the midst of our sinfulness. And sure, as a side effect, we will find a reduction of sin taking place in our lives. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm just saying that this will happen through the relationship that we have with him, not through a person's determination out of their own flesh, with hope that once they achieve that, then they will begin to have a relationship with God. And that's usually how this ends up being, even though people don't want to just say it like that. I'm just going to say it, that's what I see. And I think you can look for that yourself, and you will probably find, maybe not in all circumstances, of course, but I think you will find this taking place in enough circumstances that it certainly is worthy of being mentioned. All right? What I understand about sanctification is that it is a formal word that means that you have been set apart. Okay? And being set apart from the world, being set apart, does that mean that you are set apart because of what you do? Or are you set apart because of what he has done? And this is an argument. This is a conflict. This is an issue. Because you will find that most people will say that they are set apart because of what they do and what they don't do. And yet I will say that you are set apart because of what he has done already. All right? And those are two completely different things. Unless a person wants to say, okay, yeah, I'm set apart because of what he did, but, positionally I'm set apart, but practically I'm not until I do this, that, and stop doing this and that. And that's what people will usually develop. And when they do that, they effectively take away. They will effectively negate what Jesus has done for them already. And so they are not able to walk in the newness of life. They're not able to live in the inheritance in Christ Jesus, because while they may say that they have moved past these things, that they understand that and they moved past it and they're now, walking in the newness of life. No, they're not. They just aren't. They have no idea what they're missing. They just don't, in general, they just don't know. So these are things that you need to look for. I can only speak in the general context in this case, unless I have some specific examples which occur when you're interacting with people on an individual basis. So I can tell you about what you might want to look for, and you may be able to relate to this in your own personal life experience. But what I would like to emphasize is the definition of sanctification being set apart because of what he has already done. Now, here in John chapter 17, when the Lord is praying, this is the Lord's prayer, the way that he prays to his God, he mentions sanctification in the context of truth, that we are sanctified by the truth. We are set apart by the truth. This is another way to represent or to understand sanctification. I mentioned that you can understand it in the sense of you are set apart because of what he did through forgiveness, the restoration of the Holy Spirit, setting us free from a life under the law, either the law of Moses or whatever law you want to come up with or whatever law you want to embrace from whatever church you go to. All right? Or one that you make up on your own. So there are a lot of implications related to that. But here he describes sanctification not just in the sense of what he has done, but also in the sense of you are set apart because you believe the truth that he has conveyed. Just that. You're sanctified because you're set apart. You're sanctified because you believe something that God said. That sets you apart from who? From those who do not believe what God has had to say. And this is important, all right? Do not underestimate the significance and the importance of discovering what it is that he has had to say and believing, trusting, relying on, incorporating these truths in your daily life experience as you make decisions about how you live your life on a regular basis. All right, this will set you apart. It absolutely will do that. So let me go into John chapter 17. I was speaking about this from the point of view of verse 17. Verse 17, sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. Now I'm going to skip over verse 18 just for a moment, but I will come back to it. He repeats this again in verse 19. That's why I want to skip over verse 18 to show you the repetition between verse 17 and 19. In verse 19 he says, and for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they also may be sanctified by the truth. For their sakes I have sanctified myself. This is what Jesus said. What what he's saying, according to this definition of sanctification, Jesus is not saying, for their sake, I have decided not to sin. We know that's not going to make any sense. He's not going to do it anyway, okay? He has sanctified himself by standing firm in that which is true, that which is real, and being consistent with the truth and engaging the world and living his life on the basis of the truth. He has sanctified himself. He has set himself apart from everyone for our sake. All right, now, of course, that's a package deal. There is a lot to say about that. All right, because this is related to him being the perfect offering for the sins of the world. That's one direction that you can go in that would be related to the idea of him setting himself apart for our sakes. But in this case, I believe in this context, it would be more consistent to say that he has engaged the world with the truth. He has stood firm in the truth, and he has done that for our sakes in the sense of he has led the way. Okay? He has led the charge. He is taking the preeminent role with the expectation and the hope that others will be encouraged and they will follow. This is an important thing. And this is part of why God relates to us as a leader, asking us to follow. Sometimes he will raise up leaders through which others may or may not follow. There's been many times, for example, when I have effectively led the charge, only to look back and realize that I'm just doing it by myself, and everybody's just watching, which is okay, I understand, but, I will do what I believe my God has sent me to do, and sometimes I do what I want to do, and either way, sometimes people will support that effort and follow through with me, and other times they won't, just all depends on them for the most part. But God has set himself apart from the world and asserted that for our sake in order to lead in the truth, lead the charge, be the king, be the Messiah, be the Savior, and in that way, we may have some courage. We may have some courage and we may have some conviction that we will be able to take with us as we go and engage the world with the truth as well. Even though, the end for him was crucifixion, all right, well, is the truth more important than our physical lives or not? And in his example, the truth is more important. And what he would be expressing through that, and what I'm saying, is that the eternal consequences of life are of greater importance than the temporary physical life that we exist in. So for our sakes, which can mean a lot of different things, for our sakes, he set himself apart from the world and he engaged the world on the basis of truth. And that, of course, can mean many different things. But in this case, I think what he is saying is that he did this in order to encourage us and to inspire us to go forward and go into the world ourselves. All right? So let's go back to verse 18, in between verse 17 and 19 there. Verse 18, he said, "As you sent me into the world, I also have sent them into the world." Talking about his disciples. Later on, he will speak about other people. That's in verse 20. "I do not pray for these alone, but also for those who will believe in me through their word." All right? And so he speaks about others, which I believe he's speaking about us and the generations before us and those that will come after us. But let's start with the disciples. Okay? In verse 18, he is sending the disciples into the world. And he is praying that they may be set apart because he has related to them the truth that God has revealed. Will they stand firm on those truths? And will they engage the world with those truths? Will they be set apart and still interact with the people of the world, reaching out to them with the truth that they may respond and believe and be saved? He is going to send them out. All right? But what happened? What happened when he sent these guys out? Right? I spoke about this in the previous message about James, for example. James ended up being, this was the brother of Jesus, not one of the disciples. He ended up being the head of the church in Jerusalem. Well, what's he doing there, right? What's he doing there? What about these other guys? What about these disciples? You would expect, perhaps, that one of them would take that role. But it appears they did not so much. We have some examples when some of them did interact. But even so, for how long? And to what extent? And what was the truth that they were conveying? As we read through the book of Acts and we study the life and the ministry of the Apostle Paul, I think it's obvious that we can see that the disciples, they engaged the world with what Jesus taught when he was there, which was the Old Covenant. All right, they did not engage the world with the New Covenant. That was something that the Apostle Paul did. They engaged with what Jesus said to them, which is true, but it would lead a person to the end of the Old Covenant if they would ever get there. And there is a place for that ministry. There is. There's a place for that, and God can make use of that. But for people to not follow through and go to the New Covenant and to live in that, that's something else. And it does not appear that the disciples went that far. They didn't go that far. They got stuck somewhere. And why would I say that with some degree of conviction? Well, you can continue to read in the history of the development of the early church and what people did with what was given to them. And you can see towards the end that, there appears to be an indication that they just got stuck and they did not follow through into the new covenant as well as you would have hoped. All right, for example, in Acts chapter 21, I'm going to turn to that. In Acts chapter 21, beginning in verse 18, Acts chapter 21, verse 18 would be more helpful if I had a bookmark, right? Chapter 21, beginning in verse 18, Paul goes to Jerusalem and he has a discussion with James. All right, and I'm going to start out in verse 17. This is Acts chapter 21, verse 17. And when he had come to Jerusalem, the brethren received us. When we had come to Jerusalem, the brethren received us gladly. On the following day, Paul went in with us to James, and all the elders were present. All the elders, I would expect that some of these disciples that Jesus was, talking about were present. I would expect that. When he had greeted them, he told in detail those things which God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. All right, so he greets all of the elders of the church in Jerusalem and the head, James, right? And he tells them about all of the things that he's been doing. Okay, in detail, those things which God had done among the Gentiles through him. And when they heard it, they glorified the Lord. Did they really? Keep reading. And they said to him, You see, brother, how many myriads of Jews there are who have believed, and they are all zealous for the law. They glorified God, and then they said, oh, but don't you see all these Jews who have believed? They are all zealous for the law. Now, we know through what Paul wrote that this is not the Christian life, to be zealous for the law. That is not the Christian life. That's what you need to come to the end of, your zealousness for the law, so that you can enter into the new covenant that God defined because of what he did. All right, there's a new life in Christ that is based on living in the inheritance. But what he says is, oh no. You see, look at all these people who have stopped sinning, are close enough. Look at all these people who are now sanctified because they are zealous for the law. Before, they were living for the indulgence of the flesh. But now they are living for the restraint of the flesh. I'll say that again. Before, they were living for the indulgence of the flesh, and now they are living for the restraint of the flesh. Folks, either way, you're still living by the flesh. I will say that again. You are still living by the flesh. Either the restraint or the indulgence, it's still living by the flesh. Okay, there is a new life in Christ Jesus that is about living by the inheritance that we have received as children of God as a result of his death. That's a whole different way of life. To live on the basis of what he has given to you. All right? Have you received the love of God for you, the acceptance of God for you because of what he did? Or does he love and accept you because you got your flesh under control? That's the question. Do you rest and live in the love and acceptance that God has for you because of what he has done for you? Or because of what you have done for, and of course what you have done for him is still not enough. All right, and you know it. You know it. Okay, and so if you think that he loves and accepts you because of your zealousness for the law, yeah, well, deep down inside, you know better. Okay, you know better. And that you are still not perfect enough for him. And just comparing yourself with other people, that's not going to work either. It's between you and your God. And deep down inside, you know that he doesn't accept you. He's ashamed of you, and he is disgusted with you. So, okay, great. You're all zealous for the law. This is the best you can hope for, if you're going to be honest, if you're going to live in the truth, if you're going to be set apart according to the truth, and that's what they say to Paul. That's what they say. This is what we have achieved. All right? So, what is the effect that the disciples have there in Jerusalem? What is the effect? Are they really set apart from all of the other religious people who are there? These are the people who Jesus had a lot to say about, right? Are they set apart? No. They have assimilated. They are now a part of the world. A part of the religious world, okay? The world of people who live for the restraint of the flesh, not the indulgence, but it's still the world. It's still living by the flesh, either way. So they have assimilated. They have not been set apart from. They have now integrated within, which is why, you continue to read, you discover that Paul has a conflict with the religious leaders in the temple when he shows up. Why was it that the other disciples didn't have that problem with the religious leadership? Why was that? Why was it just the Apostle Paul? Because he was sanctified and they were not. He was set apart and they were not. They were assimilated within the religious community to the point where they were not distinguishable from anybody else for that matter. So they may believe that Jesus is the Messiah. Well, they can be tolerated to a certain extent, even though they would likely experience some persecution of some kind. It certainly was not enough to keep them out of the temple. All right. There would be some bias against them. There would be some discrimination against them, but that's not the same thing as what they would experience if they were truly sanctified. They are not sanctified according to what Jesus was saying in verses 17 and 19 here in John chapter 17. John chapter 17, verse 17 and 19, sanctify them by the truth. And they were not sanctified by the truth. They were maybe sanctified by their perceived obedience, which was not real. That was not real sanctification. The real sanctification is based on being set apart by believing and trusting in the truth. Again, in Acts chapter 21, beginning in verse 18, on the following day, Paul went in with us to James, and all the elders were present. When they had greeted them, he told in detail those things which God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. What God had done there. All right? So what has God done in Jerusalem? What has God done? Well, they're all zealous for the law. Has he done that? Is that what he's done? No. That's what they have done. When he had greeted them, he told in detail those things which God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. And when they heard it, they glorified the Lord. Yeah, okay. And they said to him, you see, brother, how many myriads of Jews there are who have believed, and they are all zealous for the law. But they have been informed about you. They've been informed that you teach all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, nor to walk according to the customs. What then? The assembly must certainly meet. We all got to get together. For they will hear that you have come. Therefore, do what we tell you. Do what we tell you. Do it, and do it now. All right? We have 4 men who have taken a vow. Take them and be purified with them and pay their expenses so that they may shave their heads and that all may know that those things of which they were informed concerning you are nothing. All these things which they have heard concerning you, we have to eliminate. We have to pretend that isn't really what's going on. We have to take that away. And you do what we tell you now that you're here. And you show that you did not, teach the Jews among the Gentiles not to live according to the Mosaic law. You better do this. And here's a way that you can do this so that we can say, you see, those things that we've heard about you, and yeah, we know that they're true, but no, we're gonna find a way to say that they're not. All right, that's the elders of the church, to include most likely the disciples who Jesus was praying for. Yeah, okay, yeah. Take them and be purified with them. Pay their expenses so that they may shave their heads, and that all may know that those things of which they were informed concerning you are nothing, but that you yourself also walk orderly and keep the law. But concerning the Gentiles who believe, we have written and decided that they should observe no such thing, except that they should keep themselves from things offered to idols, from blood, from things strangled, and from sexual immorality. With the Gentiles, it doesn't matter. With them, so what? No big deal with you Gentiles. But for the Jews, that's totally different. What do you mean it's totally different? Why is it different? Are the Jew and the Gentile now one in Christ Jesus? Or are they like two different persons? Live in two different covenants? And that's what a lot of people want to believe. Okay, well, I'm a Jew. Unless you ask some people, well, no, he's not a Jew, because you see, a Jew believes in anything, but Jesus is the Messiah. As soon as you believe that Jesus is not a Messiah, well, then you're not a Jew anymore. There are people who really want to believe that. But, is it based on a genealogical lineage, or is it based on what you believe? Well, if it's based on what you believe, then you believe in Moses, or you are not a Jew. You believe in Moses. You believe in the law. You believe in the God who is described in the scriptures, in the Torah, or you are not a Jew. Oh, no, we can't say that. No, I'm a Hindu. I believe in Hinduism. I believe in those gods. I'm a Buddhist. I'm in anything. I don't even have to believe that there is the existence of God. I just have to not believe in Jesus. It's so beyond absurdity. Beyond absurdity. You can't even have a conversation about it because people don't even really care. What difference does it? What difference does it make? We only say it's important when we can hurt you, when we can, disown you, when we can say you are not a person. You have no right to exist, and your existence offends me. Okay, good for you. This is the kind of, I suspect you can probably tell by the way that I say this, that I can say this from personal experience. It absolutely is from personal experience. All right, it's a life that I have lived. But folks, I want you to see that at the end of Acts chapter 21. All right, I want you to see that it's not about the truth. It's about living in fantasy, living in denial of reality. That's what it's about. But God has said, He said that we are to be set apart by what is real, by what is true. And God exists, and He is the one who is the definer of what is true and what is real, not you. You are not God. You are not God, even though you pretend like you are. All right? You go right ahead and do it alone. And you will go to the place of the forgotten. Yes, you will. Going back to John chapter 17, again in verse 18, as you sent me into the world, I also have sent them into the world. Well, they were sent. How did they do? They didn't do as well as I think he was hoping. But he found others. He found others. Verse 19, and for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they also may be sanctified by the truth, if they will embrace it and believe it. Verse 20, I do not pray for these alone, but also for those who will believe in me through their word. And it's a good thing, too, because they didn't seem to hang on to their word so well. So let others who believe in their testimony, let them carry it through and follow through and embrace the truth even more than they did if necessary. Okay? It's not going to just stop with the disciples. It's not going to just stop with those who assert that they have been sanctified. It doesn't just stop there. There will always be someone who will hear the truth and carry it forward, and who will likely embrace it more than those who told them. That is good. That is good. Again, in verse 20, I do not pray for these alone, but also for those who will believe in me through their word. And this has been true for every generation since he said this. Every generation there has been someone. And you are among the people of this generation, of this time. And you will quite likely be sent by him on some occasion to reach out to someone with the truth. Or you can go on your own and bring him with you, But either way, he has prayed for you that you will embrace the truth and live with it and be set apart from the world by your conviction of the truth, but also go out into the world and share that with others. All right? And this is the ministry. This is the ministry of our God, the service of our God, to reach out to others that others may believe the truth and begin to have a personal, interactive relationship with him. And when he sends you, you will know. You will know if he does. If he doesn't, it's okay. It's not a big deal. But when he does, if he does, you will know. And if you know who sent you, then when you go, you know who put you there. And the outcome is irrelevant. Okay? The outcome doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if people believe what you have to say. The only thing that matters is that you are faithful to what your God has given to you and that you share that with somebody else. That he may speak through you. That he may see through your eyes, hear through your ears, speak through your mouth, touch with your hands, and that he may reach out to others in the world within and through you. And if they reject him, so be it. Let it be. Amen. Okay? Do not concern yourself with the outcome or whether there is some sense of success or failure. If you know who sent you and you know who put you, then you have been put. All right? And then you are to be faithful to what your God directs you to do, regardless of the outcome. Regardless of the outcome. I have lived this life for a long time now, and these are things that I have personally experienced. Many occasions, the Lord has sent me to go and speak with people. And in most cases, he doesn't even tell me what it's about. I just go to represent him and wait and allow his Spirit to work within me to be effective during that time. And there's been many occasions when this time has been a short period of time of maybe 15, 20 minutes. Other occasions, it has been several hours. And, without exception, I've also discovered that at the end of these interactions, I've been able to tell how the Lord had prepared me for years prior just for that brief moment. When he was able to send me to do something on his behalf, to reach out to people in a way that they would be able to receive the truth. They would be able to receive the truth from me, perhaps even better than if he had sent an angel or if he showed up personally. It was much more effective, especially because it would give them the opportunity to decide. Do they want to embrace that or not? And in many cases, they simply remembered what I had to say, and at a later date, later on in their lives, it became something real to them, and they believed the truth. Some people that I have known in the past, they have embraced the gospel. They did surrender. They did receive the Holy Spirit and become spiritually alive, become children of God. Others, I recognize that they abandoned their former way of life, but they had not yet embraced the new covenant. And I don't know what may have happened in the years following. It really isn't for me to know, and it isn't important for me to know. What's important is that I am faithful to the truth that God has given to me. That is what is of importance. And so when he sends, be his representative. Do not be concerned about the outcomes. Don't be concerned about whether people will believe or not believe, or when they will or when they won't. You are to be true to the God who sent you, and you are to be set apart by the truth that he has revealed and that you believe. So that when you interact with others with hope that, we hope that they will also receive, consider, and eventually one day remember and embrace the truth that was shared with them for themselves, so that they also may begin to have a personal, interactive relationship with their God. Again, in verse 20, I do not pray for these alone, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they all may be one as you, Father, are in me. Again, that they all may be one as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that you sent me. Now, this is repetition from the previous verses. Verse 14, I have given them your word, that the world has hated them because they are not. No, that's not the verse where it was that he said we are to be one. Verse 11. Okay, verse 11, through your name, those whom you have given me, that they may be one as we are. Verse 21 is repetition from verse 11. Verse 21, repetition from verse 11, that they all may be one as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that you sent me. Now, this is another way that the world may believe that Jesus was sent by God, that he is God, that this is the truth. The more that we are one with one another, there are people in the world who will look at that and they will consider, well, I guess if there's a lot of people who believe this, then there must be something to it. This is not the best way. The better way is believe the truth because it is the truth, not because you can find a lot of people who believe it, right? It shouldn't matter how many people believe it. It shouldn't matter. If you're all by yourself and you're all alone and you are testifying about him, then that should be enough, And I have found that in many cases it is. I have found in some cases that people are persuaded a little bit more because there is a group. I have seen that. I understand that. But it's not as effective and it's not as profound. And people don't really develop the sense of true conviction by the truth. As they don't. This doesn't happen as well as it happens one-on-one. So do not consider what Jesus is saying here in the sense of we have to have a group of people who are one with another. It's great and it's effective, okay? But I have found that it can still be more effective when people will embrace the truth because it is true, not necessarily because there are a lot of other people who believe it. It's not the same. They can embrace the truth because a lot of people believe it and they just want to be a part of the group. But folks, this is just a good start. It's not the same as them embracing it because it is real. It's not the same. It can be a transition. And it is. It's a transition. Okay, I'm part of the church. there's this group of people, I'll believe it because, it seems to be true because we got a lot of people who believe it. That's a good start. But the hope is that soon, soon they will believe it because it is the truth and because it is real, not just because there's a lot of other people who believe it. So Jesus prays for that, and it is an effective means. I don't want to take it away. It is an effective means. By all means, if this is going to work, let's do it. Sure. Again, in verse 21, at the end of verse 21, that the world may believe that you sent me, right? Because why? Because there are many who believe it. If that's what it takes, then that's fine. But again, there is a preference for something more. All right. Now, for those of you who are using this for your small groups, I got a question that you could use in order to facilitate some discussion. Have you ever felt like you were sent? That's a good question. Have you ever felt like you were sent? Now, again, if you've never felt that way, this is not to be used against you. You are not to feel condemned. You're not to feel like a second-class citizen or a second-class Christian. You may be the one person in this group of people, and they all got these testimonies about how they were sent, and you were not. You don't have one of those. We don't want to see that. Okay, we don't want to see that. Like I said, I was prepared in many cases for years for the moment when I was sent. And you could very well just simply be getting prepared by your God. He may be preparing you for something that might be more profound than any of the other testimonies that somebody there has. But we don't want to do that. We don't want to start making comparisons with each other. This is not going to be helpful. All right. But I want the opportunity for people to say, there was a time when I really believed that I was sent, so that we can at least acknowledge and testify of these circumstances and let them be true and real. But be humble about it and recognize that this is a work of your God in the circumstances that were present at that time. And it doesn't mean this is ever going to happen again. Okay? It doesn't mean that. But there are many occasions when this has happened. I've spoken about some of these occasions in my own personal experiences in some of the recordings that I did for Living God Ministries. In the work that I did on spiritual warfare, for example, I give an example that I think is worth listening to. And there have been many others. So, consider this as a discussion question just in order to get things started. Have you ever felt as though God sent you in order to speak on his behalf to somebody? And if not, that's perfectly fine as well. But I think it's a good place to start with a conversation. All right, I will proceed into John chapter 17 in the next message. Thanks.